Here we go then. We're back. It's episode 17. It is Beyond the Battlefield. It's a hectic morning, but we are with it. We're rolling. Big wheels behind the camera, Express Media. For those watching, thank you for your support. Please subscribe. Please like. Please share. Please spread the message and get this podcast out as far as you can. This morning's guest, our first guest of the day, is Miss Christine Nicholson.
Hello.
Hello. Speaker, author, coach, seen as an expert in your field. It's a good intro, that, isn't it?
Yes.
Ex-Royal Navy, been homeless twice.
Oh, yeah.
Lots and lots to talk about. I wrote down here on your message, I like this, so I'm going to read this out. This was your message. Tomorrow the sun rises and a new day starts. Each new day brings the opportunity to take one small step towards a better life. It's okay to ask for and receive help and be prepared to help yourself by accepting you are worthy of it. Given your background, do you think you have to have been through a really dark period to fully understand what it's like to reach out for help and accept it? Because we're proud people, right? Ex-service men and women.
Yeah, I just think some people are brought up with the it's okay to ask for help. And I mean, I'm very lucky. I come from a really loving, quite close family. But there was an element of pride. I actually don't know where my element of pride came in. Perhaps it's because I'm the eldest. But I always felt like I needed to be self-sufficient. It's very arrogant to say. I've always looked at people who wallow in their weakness as being less than. But that's just arrogance. Because now actually what I realise is, there are moments when it's acceptable for you to have moments of self-pity. And actually, frankly, I probably had lots of them. I've just never visibly shown them. And, you know, that whole stiff upper lip thing. I wasn't brought up in that environment, but I kind of took to it really well. But I think perhaps being the eldest gave me a sense of responsibility because, frankly, if any of the others mucked up, it was always they got into trouble and I got into trouble too. So... yeah, it's.
Do you still find yourself now as being who you are and what we're going to speak about in the next hour? Do you still ever find yourself in periods of that self-pity moment and you have to sort of snap yourself out of it, or are you constantly strong?
Oh no! I've actually accepted to make space for the self-pity, but it has a time limit. It's like, yep, okay, I recognise this is what I'm feeling. Okay, I'm going to allow myself. It's a bit like when I'm working with clients. Sometimes they need to vent or rant. I go, that's okay. But the clock's on no more than 10 minutes because we haven't got time. From a life perspective, the one thing that we've all got a limited amount of is time. And if you're spending it feeling sorry for yourself, actually that can be very restorative because it really allows you to reflect. But then you've got to get off your arse and do something about it. But it doesn't need to be a big thing. And it doesn't need to be a beat yourself up thing. It can just be okay, what's the one thing I'm going to do today? It might be get out of bed. Like that. I mean, I've definitely spent multiple days in bed feeling sorry for myself when I was in a very, very dark place. It could be just clean your teeth. I remember somebody once said to me, everybody has a bad day. And you can start your day bad. It can just be, oh God, this is feeling like it's not really going anywhere. You can always start your day again. So if you have a morning routine, so I get out of bed, I clean my teeth. So now every time I clean my teeth, it's starting my day again. So now all I have to do is that 2 minutes when I'm cleaning my teeth, I just reset what needs to happen today for me to have a really good day.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just changing the way you're thinking.
It's the classic, there's that US Marines thing, make your bed, isn't it?
Yes.
Make your bed.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the end of the day, if you've had a bad day, you're going to get into a nice, clean, comfortable bed. And then you start again. Yeah. And again, it's just, it's very small, but it is huge. It's starting the day with a win, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than, this morning's been carnage for me. So, but there are wins. I got my children to school safely.
Yep. We're alive.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So it's just starting the day with wins because life is hectic.
Yeah.
Life is stressful. It's just how it is. Yeah. I don't know anyone that does a 9 to 5 and is just like kicking back with no responsibilities, with no problems. I said to Will earlier, it never rains, it pours.
Yeah. Oh God,
Quite literally
this
today.
morning.
Yeah, but it does. It's just problem after problem after problem. It's the same for me. It's the same for you as coaches, but it's how we deal with it.
Yeah.
So when people are in low points like we've been in, I feel like we've got an air of authority and understanding that you can go, no, I know, but this is what we do. We help people. And it starts with these small little things.
Yeah. I often see people being like rude to other people or being angry, or it still amazes me that you can get on a train. I've done a lot of commuting. You can get on a train at 6:20 in the morning and somebody's really angry and you just think, what's going on in their life that they start their day in that kind of mood?
Yeah.
But then you don't know what's going on in their life. And do you know what? Instead of scowling at the angry person or tutting at them or rolling your eyes, actually just smile at them.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, actually smiling at people is my favourite thing. It makes you feel good, so it gets those endorphins going. It makes people either reassess themselves or they smile back. I have to say, I've had a few people then chase me down the escalator going, oh, can I give you my number? In my younger days, I have to say. I don't get that so often these days. But then you think, okay, smiling at people can actually lead to creepy consequences. But, just smile at people because if nothing else, makes you feel better. Another thing I do, particularly on escalators, because I find escalators really stressful, is I always walk on escalators. I never stand still. So I always look at the people I'm walking past. And if I can find one really good thing, it can be, amazing pair of shoes, or love your hair, or love the colour of your jacket. Again, it's like smiling at someone. They feel flimming amazing because, one, they feel seen. Two, it's like, I actually did make an effort
So
today.
you walking up escalators commenting on every single people? Nice shoes, nice hat.
Not everybody, but if, a couple of months ago, this woman was walking was on the escalator ahead of me, and she had an amazing pair of shoes. And all I kept on thinking of is, God, I'd have to cut off my big toe to get in those. And so they were spectacular, but like my foot never ever going to go into them. But it would have been remiss on me to notice and not actually say something.
This is human interaction. I've spoken about this on podcasts before, and it's I was speaking to a client yesterday about values. What are your values in life? And it made me think, and I was quite quick to say it. And I went, my values are being a good person, acting like there's a camera on me all the time, acting like my children are always watching in my behaviours and my decision making in what I do, not just in health and wellness, but those behaviours of road rage. If someone wants to cut me up, that's fine, crack on. Back in the old day, I would have gone crazy and probably chased them and made them stop. But it's just being a good human and not letting things. Because going back to what you said about people having a bad day, we're very, very judgmental. Of course, we are as humans. And I still am, as I'm sure you are. But it's a case of stepping back and thinking, I wonder what that person's going through. Because I remember when I was at my lowest, I was a shit, and I was not a nice person because of my own selfish behaviours, because of how I was feeling. I was at a low point. So people would have met me and gone, I don't like him. I'm not surprised. So it's looking at someone and having empathy and what they potentially might be going through.
Yeah, and most of us haven't walked in many other people's shoes. So when we talk about the homelessness issue, for example, whenever I am hot-footing it around London, I'm not in London that often these days, but I'm very conscious of people on the street. So when I've got time, the first thing I do when I see a homeless person is I get down to their eye level. A second thing I do is ask them what their name is. And then I ask them if they're safe. And so first of all, you're actually meeting them where they are instead of looking down on them. Because if you think about it, even I'm only 5'3", but even me towering over someone who's sat down, and they're not sat down because they're lazy. So towering over someone is automatically a threatening thing, even though most of the veterans that I see on the street, the first thing they'll go is, I can look after myself. And I said, when I ask you whether you're safe, I wasn't asking if you could look after yourself. Those are two very, very different things. Second is asking someone's name. And when I ask them my name, I hold out my hand and say, nice to meet you. And I tell them what my name is. And the number of veterans, again, that are actually just generally homeless people, they can't remember the last time they even said their name, unless it was to tick a box or fill a form in to go and live in a hostel. Nobody's done that on a human-to-human level. And then asking them if they're safe leads on to, is there anything I can do for you right now? And do you know what? I've never once been asked for money. Never once have I been asked for money, which most people will find quite surprising.
Why are we too quick as a society to look down on people that are homeless and just think they're, must be criminals, must be drug addicts?
I think it's because we're genuinely afraid that that's what's possible for us. And actually, most people are only 8 weeks away from the street. Which, when you think about it, 8 weeks isn't that long. But if somebody lost their job, within 8 weeks, they can potentially lose their home. Most of the veterans that I meet on the street are actually ex-army, and they've divorced, they've got kids. They've usually not got a stable secondary family background, and they got married in uniform. They then started to have kids. They didn't want to be away at war all the time. They came out of uniform. They actually got married to someone who really respected the uniform. Now they don't have that. When they get divorced, they're the ones that leave the family home, and because they don't have that secondary family support structure, which is the complete opposite of my situation. I had all of that. I just had to ask for it, and I was too afraid to. But most of these people don't. And the army or navy or whatever was typically their family, and they're now out of that support environment. And it's really difficult to ask for help when you've been the one that's been fighting. You're the one that's always been I use the term hard man, and it's less common for women to be homeless, but most of the people who are have to put up this front of being quite tough. So therefore, actually showing any vulnerability is really difficult.
Bring us on to being homeless. So I'm really interested in this. And joined the Royal Navy, left the Royal Navy. How? How did you? And I want to know what it was like. We see people on the street all the time, and I'm like, it's hard. What's happened here?
Yeah, and you think that that something really bad must have happened. Actually, you know what? Nothing really bad happened to me. I just ended up there by accident, and I suppose I was young, I was naive. When I was a little girl, I only wanted to join the Navy because my dad was in the Navy, and frankly, I saw him having a really good life. Although we were incredibly poor, but he had these photo albums of all the places that he'd ever been to, and I just thought, oh God, there's so much world out there to see. So I joined up. Plan A, join the Navy. There was no plan B. Plan B was death will follow when you're in your whatever, how old you are. Then they decided, I joined the Wrens. So the Women's Royal Naval Service was a subsidiary of the Royal Navy, and their strapline was never at sea, which suited me fine. I've always suffered from seasickness. Then some wise spark decided that all women wanted to go to sea, because let's face it, if you join the forces as a woman, you just want to be a man anyway. Oh, fuck that for a game of soldiers. So I didn't want to go to sea, but I eventually would have ended my 9-year term with the Wrens. I would have progressed my career no further than it was, and then I would have been kicked out. So I thought, well, actually, probably best leave now, because otherwise I'm just going to be stuck in a dead end job. Frankly, kind of wish I'd just pushed it a bit further, but we are where we are. And when I explained to my divisional officer that's what that I was leaving because I got chronically seasick, he saw me looking for jobs in the back of the Lady magazine, and he said, "What bloody hell are you doing that for?" He said, "You need to check out a different recruitment source." And so he bought in and this was pre-internet, like it was pre-computing really. Yeah. So he bought in a pull-out from the Telegraph, which was called Creme de la Creme. So it was much higher level appointments. And then somebody saw me reading that, and they said, "What are you reading that for?" I said, "What you need to do is go and get a professional qualification, and then you go in you should be looking at some of these higher level jobs. I left school at 16 with 5 scrappy O levels. So what really stuck in my mind was I need to go and do a professional qualification. Then I left the Navy with no plan, just this thing echoing in my head. And I had no real roots, no idea what was possible, and no idea what I wanted to do. So professional qualification in what? I literally had no idea.
How old were you?
I was 25, just coming up to my 25th birthday.
See, even that I find, for me personally, like I wing a lot of stuff and cuff a lot of stuff, but like just to leave and go, we'll sort something out.
It was even worse than that.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea where I was going to be, and I'd never really had any kind of roots, and I certainly wasn't going to go back to my hometown. I literally got a road map of Britain and I closed my eyes and flipped it open, and then the page where it came, I thought, that's where I'm going to go and find a job.
No.
Yep. Which put me in Windsor. So Windsor and Eton, and I did, at one point I had 3 different jobs all at the same time. And even with 3 jobs, and I rented a room, and then the landlord was, I can't even begin to describe the landlord. He'd rented a 3-bedroom house out to 3 women, but constantly would be letting himself in. Like, we used to have to wedge things under our door to stop him coming in the middle of the night. I mean, all of us were sexually assaulted while we lived there. So one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden I'm like, and now I've only got 2 jobs and no money, and I can't find anywhere to live that I can even afford. So I did a bit of sofa surfing. I did a bit of working in places where I could then sleep after my shift. And it's really difficult to describe how easy it was to get in that situation where you are literally carrying all of your belongings with you. One phone call, literally one phone call, could have ended it all. All I had to do, phone my family and say, I need somewhere to stay. And I just couldn't pick up the phone. So then something random happened. I decided that actually maybe I should go to sea after all. Not in the Wrens, but somebody had been pointing out the fact that warships don't have stabilisers. Actually, they do. But actually, big ships have stabilisers. And if you want to go, I had a little job in a hotel, and they said, well, if you want to see the world, the best way to see the world is go cruising, because they're literally hotels, floating hotels. So I thought, I'll give it a go. So I phoned a few cruise companies. And I wasn't Thai, I wasn't Filipino.
Are you homeless at this point?
Yeah. So I was doing all of this from a coin box and a yellow pages. So I was going into the library, and it was, oh God, I can't believe this. This is criminal activity. Tearing pages of the telephone directories and then phoning cruise companies up. Then one day I had actually written the number down for this cruise company, and I got the number the wrong way around. But it gave me the direct line to the director of operations, and his name was Mr. Wren. It's like, oh my God. Like, I'm not very woo-woo, and I don't believe there's a hand of God, etc. But oh my God, the universe was totally on my side that day, because it just so happened that one of their ship's accountants, pursers, had literally phoned him that morning to say she was having to leave because she was pregnant. And they were now starting the recruitment process. And it was literally within 15 minutes of him getting that phone call that I phoned him on a wrong number.
That's mad.
I know. So then I went to sea for a year, which was a year of seasickness, because even though big ships have got stabilisers, I'm afraid I only need to be on a pontoon, and I'm... So you know, you one of the questions you said was, what's your real low point? And it's like, and I think the inference was, did you have to get to that low point to actually bounce off? But actually, I wouldn't have made that call if I hadn't been where I was.
How long were you homeless for at that stage?
About 6 months.
Are we talking sleeping on the street in a sleeping bag?
Very occasionally, yeah. Not a sleeping bag, I didn't have one.
cardboard box.
So, well, I would just find places that were, and I would say sleeping would be, there are different levels of sleep. You know, we were talking about 15-minute micro sleeps. You spend the whole day exhausted because your levels, your sense of danger is quite heightened. But for the most part, I found the extraordinary kindness of strangers. And I think it really helped that I was never really dirty. So I always found some way of getting washed. I always found, like, it's still permanently attached to toothbrush and toothpaste. If I had any money at all, that's the first thing I spent it on.
How are you getting money?
Well, I was working.
Oh,
This is the bizarre thing. I was working. Like, I had 2 jobs. At one point, I had 3 jobs, and I couldn't find somewhere I could afford to stay. I couldn't even find somewhere I could rent a room because I had no depth of resources. So the minute that my pay came in, it was like, if I spend this money on anything other than the absolute minimum, then I literally, I could barely afford to feed myself. I often took jobs so I had a job in a hotel where I took extra shifts, and also, quite by chance, made friends with the night porter, which meant that I had somewhere to sleep when he was on duty. And also it meant that I also got breakfast. So it was, I know it sounds bizarre having 3 jobs and not being able to afford to find somewhere to live, but I was living in Windsor. Like I say, one phone
When you
call
opened that
could-
map up, you could have found a cheaper place.
Oh, God, yes.
To fall there, didn't it?
Yeah. I had no idea. I was so naive. So naive.
Did you ever like a community of other homeless people?
I got to know quite a few. This is where I got to know veterans. So people would tell me where not to go to. They'd tell me where to get help. I never once went in a hostel because I remember being told fairly early on that they were the most dangerous places for women, which is kind of ironic given that they're identified. This was in the 90s, so things probably have changed a lot since then. I mean, God, we've had the Me Too movement since then. But so I think there's much more awareness and sensitivity around particularly violence towards women. But, oh God, I got offered sofas to sleep on only to discover that there was a price to pay, and I didn't find out until I was being molested and mauled. This will make you laugh. One guy invited me to come and stay in his spare room, but you could stay there for a week because he was in between people actually living in. He said, "So I've got a spare room. You can have it for a week, rent free." Except the second night I had a midnight visitor, and in my attempt to fight him off, I broke his fingers, and I then had to drive him to the hospital to get his fingers fixed, which had only been broken because he tried to rape me. And it's like, yeah, do you know what? Maybe I'm too kind.
I was about to say, wow.
So, but then you see, I drove back and stayed in his place while he was at the hospital and locked him out of his own place. Because at least I knew then I was going to have a good 5 hours sleep. So, and obviously next morning I left before he came.
Did you ever action any of these? You mentioned sexual assault and whatnot. Yeah. Is that something you just moved on?
Yeah, you just move on. Because it's, I'm not talking about it being a daily occurrence, but it happened at least weekly. But, and I'm really lucky, you know, every time I hear, and I've been out of the Navy a long time, but every time, you know, the front page says, you know, sexual assault in the Navy, and there was something recently about submarines, I just think, bloody hell, I was either asleep or really unattractive or completely naive, like chose not to see it, because none of that stuff happened while I was in the Navy. And then I think, yeah, but hold on a minute. How many times when I was living in barracks did I come back to find that my knicker drawer had been raided? And it wouldn't have been by the other Wrens, by the way. So, yeah, certain things happened. I remember coming into work one day and my divisional officer's office was literally right next to the flagpole. And it was before colours, so it was before the start of work. I think it must have been about 6:30 in the morning. And at the time, it was towards the end of my career in the Navy, and I was in charge of training baby wrens. God help me. And they weren't really in the mood to be corralled. And as I walked into his office, I could see one of their bras hanging off the yard arm, which is now completely distracting me because I'm not sure that anybody else saw it. So I know now I'm going to go and have to sort that out, but I've also got to listen to my divisional officer. Now, as it happened, it was the wrens who put it up there. She was a big girl. It was a big bra. I'm not sure how many people missed it. But equally, and nobody would have taken offence at that. That was just, hijinks. Probably would have been looked at a little differently these days.
I would have thought so.
Personally, I thought it was hilarious.
What about, have you had any support or treatment or counselling or therapy from those incidents?
Not specifically for that, but I was under supervision of a psychiatrist for about 18 months. But again, completely not related to this. But so actually, some of this stuff did come out. Mostly it was hold on a minute, you didn't ask for help. The first time I ever asked for help in my entire life, I think I was 43, and I'd been roofied. So for anybody listening who doesn't know what roofies is, and anybody who's got teenage girls, please listen. This is really important. So Rohypnol, roofie, is the date rape drug. And I was single. I was in my 40s, and I was travelling around America. And in the middle of the day, while I was drinking Diet Coke, someone dropped Rohypnol into my drink. And fortunately, I had an immediate reaction to it. It started to make my tongue swell. I felt really unwell. Things started to, the room started to spin. And so I spat out what was in my mouth back into the glass. And this guy saw that I was wobbling a bit, assaulted me, and I mean absolutely battered me in the middle of the day, in the middle of a bar in America. And people had to pull him off. I'm now unconscious, and an ambulance came and got me. Now, I was also covered in blood, and the assumption was that this man had stabbed me. When I came round in the hospital, I was in scrubs, so I had none of my own clothes on. And I had no idea. I had the headache from hell. I literally thought, geez, I don't remember going on a bender last night. I have no recollection. I just remember walking into a bar at about 12:30, and the next thing I know, it's 10:30 the next day. And there's an envelope actually safety pinned to the front of my scrubs. And I'm in a corridor. I'm not even in A&E. I'm just in a corridor. So anybody who thinks that corridor care is uniquely UK, no. The reason why I was in a corridor is because they didn't know whether I had medical insurance. So they were treating me as somebody who didn't have medical insurance. And the envelope had the bill. So it was $6,000 for an ambulance, for me to be on a trolley for the number of hours, for me to have had the clothes cut off me because they were looking for a stab wound. The blood, thankfully, wasn't mine. What had happened was, I don't remember any of this, as the guy had started to attack me, I punched him really hard right on the bridge of his nose. It broke his nose and the blood just exploded. And because he was really close to me, it literally covered my my clothing. So they'd cut my clothes off, and now they had to dress me in something. So they did charge me for the scrubs, $125. So luckily I did have medical insurance, and it eventually did pay out. But I also had my neck in a brace. So as I'd gone down, I'd hit the back of my head on the metal edge of a concrete step. And frankly, it could have, just 1 or 2 millimetres the other way, I'd have been paralysed from the neck downwards. But as it happened, it just really damaged my neck, and I couldn't drive for a couple of weeks. I had no choice. I had to phone my brother, who lives in the States, and say, I can't do any more travelling. I need some help. And he got the hotel to go and pick my hire car up. I then flew back to Denver. So I was in San Diego at the time. Flew back to Denver and basically laid on my back for a couple of weeks while I was in Denver, before I restarted my American trip.
Wow.
But could have been a lot worse. So he never got round to doing anything other than equivalent of GBH, I suppose. Ho hum. I'm alive. Could be dead.
So all these incidents, and I'm sure there's more because you told me out there. How's that affecting you now? You talk about it quite openly.
Yeah. I mean, I've nothing to hide. I mean, it's part of me thinks, what. It's very tempting to say, "What did I do?" Okay. Now, in the roofie thing, the guy was actually, as we now know, because the police followed up, and the police were brilliant. There was no victim shaming, but the guy was actually a part of a gang operating in San Diego, where they were using Rohypnol to try and steal people's passports. So they were targeting tourist community. So the chances of me being anything other than physically assaulted, absolute minimum. Now, normally, if you're roofied, you'll have been seriously sexually assaulted, probably raped multiple times, maybe even by multiple people, and you will have no memory of it whatsoever. And that's probably not a bad thing, to have no memory of it. But to have it done to you, to be violated in that way, I still count myself as lucky. It was just physical assault. It was after my passport. Anybody who knows me, my passport, I have an iron grip on. It's the one thing that I can take anywhere. Being born in the UK is a golden ticket as far as I'm concerned. You got that passport, that's it. It's your golden ticket. But I've never really thought of it as being. Have I put myself in situations that actually, with hindsight, was kind of foolish? Yeah, I'm not going to blame myself for that. It's like I didn't go, where's the evil person who can do something bad to me? And also my view is, I wake up tomorrow, it's a new day. My favourite quote is a Gandhi quote. Never worry about getting old. And you can replace old with stupid. It's a privilege denied to many. And I'm still here. So, and there are plenty of people who aren't. Yeah,
powerful. And you are a very positive person. We can see that. You see the good in everything, despite a few things that you've just mentioned there.
Yeah.
Tell us about where are you in the timeline of being homeless again? You said it happened twice.
Yeah, so I was homeless in my mid-20s. And then I came back to the UK in 2010. And I'd been living in the Middle East for a few years. And I left everything behind. So, and I literally had nothing. But because I'm stupid, naive, didn't really think about it. For somebody who does planning for a living, this is hugely ironic. I hadn't really got a plan other than I arrived at Heathrow and then realised, hold on a minute, don't have a home here anymore. I had a phone, a credit card that didn't have any debt on it, 72 quid in my pocket, and a attitude towards asking for help that was the size of a planet. So I thought, God, normally, like there are two places that are a home, right? Where my stuff is, I didn't have any, and where my mum is. And I didn't have enough money to get a train to go home. Plus, I didn't want to admit that I literally had the clothes I stood up in. So I sofa surfed for quite some time. Now, I was really lucky because I had the distinct advantage is if I wasn't so afraid of being in debt, I had a credit card. So it wasn't like I didn't have any money. It was just that was debt. And I had no job, so I had no way of even paying off the minimum payment. So that whole thing was going through my head. But the other thing was, I had a phone with numbers in it, and therefore I could phone people and go, I just need a bed for the night. Because actually asking for a bed for the night is like a little ask, and most people won't say no. But if you say, oh God, I'm homeless, they start thinking in their, because I've done it, they start rationalising in their minds, fucking hell, how long is she going to be on my sofa? And whilst most people don't mind asking for help, they also don't want to be inconvenienced. And I know this myself. So, yeah, I put myself in that really bad position.
I think it's a very British trait as well, isn't it? Not to be in it. It's like everything we do, we apologise. When we're in a restaurant and we ask for the bill, we go, sorry, can I have the bill, please? You say sorry for?
I know.
Everything we do in the British language, we say, sorry, can I get some ice in that?
Yeah.
This is what we do, isn't it? But you're right, we don't want to inconvenience, especially if we've been in the military. I think we're maybe more proud than others. And it's usually blokes. It's usually blokes that don't want to ask for help. The blokes that I have on this podcast is a theme. It's a reoccurring theme. I was there. I didn't want to ask for help until the wheels fell off and I was like, I need some help. Yeah. But why do we take it to the extremes? Why do we... Where's the fine line between being a pain in the arse and just catastrophising everything, being a hypochondriac, or not asking for help at all and wait until the wheels fall off?
I wish I knew the answer to that. 'Cause, I mean, I've got acquaintances, and I definitely call them acquaintances, that I'll give you one example. A lady that I knew through business who would literally have no problem at all with screaming dramas. I mean, literally, oh my God, my jeans have got a hole in the wrong place. How am I ever going to live? I haven't got shoes to match this outfit. Seriously, not even first world problems. And I just think you're literally making a massive scene out of something that really is not, it's not even an issue. I remember her taking me to one side actually and saying, if you got better fitting jeans, you'd get more dates. And I'm going, what is it about me that makes you think that that's what I want? I said, fuck off, I really like these jeans. It's like, I don't mind taking advice, but I'm not taking it from a drama queen like you. It's just, my view of her was, probably still is, and it is a judgment. This is a person who's incredibly weak. I mean, she's literally, come the zombie apocalypse, she is the first food, like seriously. And I don't know where it comes from inside. I exhibit a lot of male traits, but there is something inside. I don't know whether it's nature or nurture. Is it what you're born with that says, I have to be self-sufficient. I've got to be. I am the survivor.
This is why we need,
at all costs.
This is why we need military service. It needs to be mandatory, because I think it serves people well in terms of robustness, times of adversity, resilience, helping others. There's so many things that the military can bring back national service. As far as I'm concerned, I'd love to see young lads and lasses go in and do a couple of years.
Yeah, so would I, but I wouldn't want to serve with them. I remember when I joined up, I don't know if it was the same for you, because you're significantly younger than me, but one of the first things you do in the first week is you go to these drug awareness lectures. And the first one, you walk in, literally the whole intake is in there. So all the baby wrens are there, and everybody who's just joined up that week. Or that month, and they come along and the first thing they say is, who's taken? And then they give you this long list of drugs, and they literally do it one at a time. And I'm never touched drugs at all. When I was 17, I discovered I was allergic to morphine because of an operation that I had. And then I thought, a proper anaphylaxis, like nearly died. And then I thought, probably going to avoid that just in case, because I don't want to go through that again. But I was very observant as to who had taken what. And when it got to the taking LSD, I actually wrote names down. of the people that I could see that had put their hands up to say that they'd taken LSD, and I thought, I am going to do everything in my power to make sure I'm not serving with those people. Because my experiences of people taking LSD had always been fatal. And not just fatal for the people who took them, but fatal for the people around them. So it gave me a very distinct perspective. Back in the old days, if you put your hand up for the wrong thing, frankly, they'd be you wouldn't be lasting the week. So, but I think most people weren't particularly aware.
People put their hand up. Surely most people in the military, even these days, they come from broken homes. So people have
I think
drugs,
that,
alcohol,
I disagree.
sorts,
I think that's a sweeping generalisation. Yeah. I think that there are some people who go into the armed forces because it is an escape. Somebody I served in the Falklands, actually, we reconnected again just recently. And I said, why did you join? And he said, I just needed to get away from home. He said it wasn't that it was that bad, but it was bad enough not to stay. And he's never reconciled with his family. Whereas my family didn't want me to join up. I'm a mob brat, but I had to wait till I was 18 to even sign up. But my reasons for joining the Navy was, I come from Barrow-in-Furness, home of the nuclear submarine, yes. But it's at the end of the longest cul-de-sac in Britain. And I needed to go and see the world. And frankly, this was I couldn't think of seeing the world without assistance. And frankly, the Navy was to coin a phrase, my boat out of there. And it did allow me to see a bit of the world. They sent me to the Falklands.
Winner.
Which, I saw 4 seasons while I was there. That was definitely interesting.
Go back to the drugs, right? Why is it bad if someone's taking drugs now they join the forces, they're trying to turn their life around?
Oh, remember, I was only 19 then. I've definitely changed my mind.
Yeah.
But it was the LSD. Yeah. So it was I think what your previous experience has been will dictate how you behave and how you judge other people going forward. And I definitely didn't want to serve with anybody who has got any likelihood of having any flashbacks. Because the military is dangerous enough.
Sure.
More people die out of war than in war situations. So, yeah, it's like, I know I'm in a dangerous environment, potentially. But as a Wren, super safe. But I don't want to be in an environment that's made more dangerous by someone's past stupidity. Otherwise, the drugs thing isn't the thing. For me, it's more important. And why I wouldn't necessarily agree with national service is it needs to be somebody you need to have a team around you that want to be there, and that comes back to values. They need to have common values. Now, do I think the training? So if you think about the Israeli Defence Force, for example, all people in Israel go and do national service. They do. I think they do 2 years. People in Croatia, for example, if you remember the tennis player won Wimbledon and then went and did his national service. So in some ways, actually doing national service is not a bad thing. I just wouldn't want to be on the front line with people who are in national service.
Maybe I'll rephrase it to they need to go and do some badass training and just go and have some sleepless nights and roll around in some mud and experience some hardship. Maybe that's better than national service and operational.
As far as I'm concerned, I'd bring back Dad's Army. I'd bring back the National Guard or something like that, where it's the here and now defence rather than the out there live firing kind of environment. Yeah.
So how do we go from all this adversity and all these, traumatic events to doing what you're doing now, which is helping people, right?
Yeah, I think the helping people has just been a fundamental part of my personality. I've always been a fixer, and sometimes I have tried to fix people even when they've not asked me to. And one of the things that comes with age is recognising when people are asking you for help and when they're asking you for your opinion. Because the irony is I've always tried to help people even when they haven't asked for help, and yet I'm the one that categorically refuses to ask for help. Yeah. I've always I'm very lucky in that I've always had really inspiring people around me, even at the worst moments. I know I said I don't believe in the hand of God or this universe woo-woo stuff, but there always seems to have been someone whose key purpose at that moment in time seems to have been to help me. There's always been a hand up, not necessarily a hand out. And sometimes that's just been something that's been really importantly said. One of my last divisional officers
That's what I was just looking for.
One of my last divisional officers in the Navy, he'd just recovered from a heart attack, so he was a commander. And he came back to work, and I think I only had 3 more weeks left. And I was at Faz Lane, so we were looking out the window over the lock, and it's a stunning view if you skip the Royal Marines hut and the security hut and the submarines. And he said, life just isn't a rehearsal. It's there to teach you some lessons. You just need to listen to the right lessons. And, you never know what's possible. Don't think about... Prepare for what's probable and plan for what's possible, which I thought was a really interesting take, because it means that you respond, you're acting on the basis of the environment you're in right now. And like I say, you can take one small step today. You don't need to take big steps. But then at least those steps are going towards something that is going to give your life purpose. And the one key thing is not what I do now is not just helping people, but it is a key purpose. It's having a purpose that ends up with someone else leading a better life, and I reflect on their glory.
So I introduced you as speaker, author, the coach part. What would you class yourself as a? Well,
let me correct you there. I never use the C word.
Oh, I've just chucked that one in, haven't I?
You have, yeah. So I'm a professional business mentor. So the difference between a mentor, and let me get my soapbox for just 10 seconds. The difference between a mentor and a coach is a coach will use coaching techniques and doesn't have to have lived the experience. A mentor has always walked in your shoes. So the reason why I say I'm a mentor is because not only will I use coaching techniques, but actually I've been there, I've been in the pain. I've got the scars, I've got the grey hairs. And particularly in what I do, which is helping people get their business ready for sale, I've been through every single type of sale. I've had the glorious champagne at 5 o'clock in the morning after a really long signing process. I've had the enigma of putting companies into liquidation and standing in front of creditors' meetings where they're saying, what the fucking hell were you playing at losing my money? So trust me. Of the 2 scenarios there's one I definitely prefer. But, it's horses for courses.
Can't believe you didn't pick me up on that an hour ago when we started, but...
I think we just got so much into something
we'll go
else.
with it.
Yeah.
Go back again, though. How did you get from... We've got a massive chunk missing of how you've gone from everything's just really shit and you're floating around, you haven't got a place to live, and now you're doing what you're doing.
So remember that time when somebody said, get professional qualification? That really was swimming in the back of my head. And when I came off the cruise ship after spending 12 months literally throwing my guts up, I'd managed to build a little nest egg, which meant that I could go and find the right kind of job and invest in training. So I spent 4 years studying to be an accountant, 3 nights a week at night school, still doing a 60-hour-a-week job. But I was just so totally focused. And then when I qualified, my first job as a qualified accountant, the job description had 2 lines. Keep us legal, boring stuff. Find ways of adding value, interesting stuff. So what I did was, because the boring stuff is really boring, I made sure that I processed the life out of that to make it as minimum impact on my daily routine as possible. And then I had 40-something companies. And the main job was sell these companies for the most amount of money. And over 4.5 years, we sold all 40 companies. And I was part of a really small team. I was the only woman in the team. And I was the most junior member. But I was I don't know what suddenly came over me. I think the past couple of years, or the previous couple of years, had made me realise, to be honest, if you just get your head down, you can do anything. You just need to be determined to do it. Now, I'm never going to be Usain Bolt. But if I wanted to be at a world-class athletics event, there are other ways to turn up than running the 100 metres in 8 seconds. So I just had to decide, where did I fit in the ecosystem that I wanted to be in? And I still was unsure, but that job made me realise that actually getting companies from A to B and selling them in the most optimal way was something that most people don't actually get the chance to do, and most business owners only ever sell one business. So it just gave me that background. Funnily enough, what I actually did after that was, having signed my own redundancy check, I took my redundancy and I started a business with the exit in mind. And then I started another one. And then as a result of that, selling those two, I then was invited to help someone build and sell their business, which turned out to be quite a different journey. But I just got this reputation for, if you want your business to be sold for the most amount of money, Christine's the go-to. And they did it entirely on referrals and word of mouth. Then I went to the Middle East and took a complete break from all of that. Was going to be a housewife. I was thinking of doing a law degree while I was there. And ostensibly I was going to just be a good wife. Unfortunately, I've never been a good wife. It just isn't in my DNA. So, which is why I ended up coming back to the UK in 2010, divorced. So single for the first time in 20 years, homeless because left everything behind, jobless because I arrived without a job, and penniless other than my 72 quid and my credit card. So.
But then you rebuilt. Yeah,
I'd done it all before. Start again. So the thing is, look, rock bottom is a great platform on which to build. And actually, there are different levels of rock bottom. So you can be absolutely rock bottom emotionally, and or you can be rock bottom financially, or there are 100 different ways to be rock bottom. You just got to decide when you either stop digging and recognise that's the bottom, or you just say, okay, the only way from here is up, and I am actively deciding that the next step is up, because everybody can always take one step. It only needs to be a millimetre. An inch is a cinch. A mile is a trial. Just go 1 inch at a time, because it might be just that today you can do an inch.
That's the inspiration that anyone watching that's at rock bottom or their rock bottom, and it's not easy for us to say, but just do this, just do that, just make your bed, just brush your teeth, like what we started with. And that was one of the reasons for doing this podcast, was to hear people say that, but with value and with experience of having been in that situation. So it's okay for you to say that, because you can go, but I've been there and I've done this. It is possible. Tell me about the books. You've got 6?
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to write a book, and I always thought writing books. So I didn't know that there was such thing as textbooks and business books. Or they were written by other people. People like me didn't do things like that. So I always thought, if I'm ever going to write a book, it'll have to be a novel. But I have written business books, and actually, funny enough, the first one was, I had a client who kept on saying to me, "Oh, I am number blind, and I don't really do numbers, and just let my accountant do that." And actually, his accountant was doing a really bad job. So I literally wrote him an instruction guide, because one of the key comments he said was, "Why is it every time I talk to my accountant, I feel stupid?" And I thought, well, actually, that's not your fault. That's the accountant's fault. So, and accountancy, medicine, and IT, and the law. 4 professions who managed to make a shitload of money by talking shit. Because they literally use language that is like, this is my environment, my language, and if you don't understand it, then you're stupid. So, and I'm going to charge you a stupidity tax. Okay. And I apologise to any people in those professions that actually tries not to do that. But for the most part, I see pomposity in those 4 things of the highest regard, because I'm just going to use all this language. So I decided to write this book for him so that he would understand the same language that his accountant was, even though it's his accountant's responsibility to make himself understood. And then as it happened, the book just became, I had no intention of publishing it, and the book just became a concept that I thought would help a number of other people. So I just went ahead and published it. And then I thought, God, okay, using the same principle.
What was it called, first book?
It's called 5 Minute Finance. So, and actually anybody listening to this podcast who's really genuinely interested, if they literally email me and in the subject line, they just put 5 Minute Finance and then in the request say, please, can I have free book? I will reply with an e-version of the book.
There you go, amazing.
Completely for free.
And we're going to put your link below. I was going to mention that at the end, and I will, but we'll put your link below so everyone can see. Second book?
So the second book was called What's Your Profit Score, which is, I found that I was asking my clients the same 7 questions. And so I just wrote the book about the 7 questions that were asked. Not going to go into them today. One of the questions is properly a question that most business owners don't actually ask themselves. And actually, whether you're in business or not, it is worth asking. That then went on to, oh God, what's the next book? I did a project on tech firms. So I've built my own technology firms. So I wrote a book which is a bit tongue-in-cheek called How to Build a Unicorn. But actually, the alternative title probably should be How Not to Waste a fucking load of money on building a tech firm that's going to fail. So it's basically how to save money failing at building a tech firm. Do you know what? I can't even remember the other books. I've collaborated on another 2. I wrote Sell It, which was about selling your business. And then I wrote How to Successfully Sell Your Business, which is much more, it's thicker and has much more content. So, and Build It, which is basically how to get more out of your business by going through employee ownership.
We were speaking out there, you spoke about having a big roll of paper. And
Yeah.
I can see, because your brain's just like this,
Yeah.
and just getting it all down.
Yeah.
So you've got it, and that's how you suddenly just found yourself with 6 books or so, which is absolutely incredible. Speaker?
Yes.
Tell us quickly, not quickly, sorry, that was horrible. We're coming towards the end, but briefly tell us about being a speaker, getting up on stage, inspiring, talking.
So I typically only talk about my books are the pitch, really. So I typically talk about selling your business. Mostly I tell stories. And when I was learning to be a public speaker, the best bit of advice I got was just go and do stand-up. So I booked myself 12 weeks of open mic. And what I didn't realise was that the first week that I booked was at the Camden Comedy Club, which is where pros go to test new material. So I get in there, and I'm the third one in, so I'm the third on the list. And the 2 names that are in front of me, you would recognise them off the telly. I thought, yeah, so what? And then I saw them perform. You're only allowed 8 minutes. Thank God. So I went on the stage afterwards and I said, well, how do you follow that? And people just looked at me and I went, no, really, how do you follow that? I'm going to tell you a secret now. This is my first time on stage. And they all started laughing and I'm going, no, I'm not joking. And then I told my fish finger story. So,
what's your fish finger story?
When I was a kid, I always used to think fish fingers. I used to love fish finger sandwiches. And when I left home, every time I used to go home, we'd have this phone call with my mum. So she'd say, okay, I'm going to be home at this time. And she'd say, what do you want for dinner? And I'd go, fish finger sandwich. And she'd go, that's not proper food. But I always had a fish finger sandwich. When I came back to the UK and finally got myself sorted in 2010, finally went home. We went to the supermarket to get fish fingers so that I can have my famous fish finger sandwich. While I was in the supermarket, I had £1 in my pocket and I put it on the lottery using 6 numbers. And I won. Not the hugest amount, but I won the lottery based on just a lottery ticket bought when I was buying fish fingers.
What did you win? How much?
I don't want to say.
Go on, ballpark.
It was big number.
Decent. Fish fingers.
Yeah. So I actually made the story last 8 minutes, and it's very much a roller coaster. Well, I think at one point I said to the audience, "You can go, oh, now," and they go, "Oh," and I thought, oh my God, this feels amazing.
So just that one chance or that one time doing stand-up.
Yeah. Oh no, I went and did it.
Right.
I mean, I then went and did it where I didn't get the reaction. I did remember coming off stage feeling quite shaky at one point, and a woman came and hugged me because she felt so sorry for me. But equally, I came off stages where I was on so much of a higher. I got on the wrong train. I remember ending up in Woking at like 2:00 in the morning because I got the wrong train after doing a stand-up gig. All I did was tell a story. It wasn't even that particularly funny a story, but yeah.
But the buzz of getting up on stage and talking.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that was a snapshot of your life, and obviously when we connected and when I asked you to come on, we spoke very briefly. I didn't know the story, which is why I wanted you to write this and speak there. There's some incredible messages in there, highs and lows, and there is a can-do attitude message there, isn't there? Of you can't do anything, but you can do what you want to do with the right attitude. Make your bed, brush your teeth.
Yeah, it's your life you choose. So a lot of people on the street, for example, people think, oh, I won't give them money because they're just going to spend it on drink and drugs. Actually, why don't you just ask them what you're going to spend the money on? So I never drank, and I certainly never drank on the set. There was certainly no way I was ever going to be out of control or incapacitated. I had enough disability as it was. I'm a woman and I'm 5'3". Like, I think at the time I was less than 9 stone wringing wet. Like, some people would have looked at me and thought, easy meat, even when sober. So, but yeah, it is your life you choose.
On that money thing, so I don't think I ever give money to anyone homeless, but I'll give them food or a bottle of water that cost me like 50p or something, or a sandwich that costs £2 because they happen to be sat outside Tesco. I think they're good acts of kindness, things that you can do.
If I can just say one thing, is go and say hello, ask them what their name is, and then ask them how you can help them. One guy once said to me, I could just do with some water, please don't buy me fizzy pop, I hate it. And then I went all the way up 2 flights of stairs because it was in a tube, and I came all the way back down, and when he saw me coming back down with the water and some squash, he burst into tears. And then I spent 15 minutes then trying to comfort him because he didn't believe I would come back. Because he was literally, why would you?
Yeah.
You know, why would you? So most people don't want anything. And when actually, hello, what's your name? My name is, are you safe?
Yeah.
Those 4 things.
And when I said at the beginning of values, act like there's a camera on you, act like someone's always watching you, be a good person, don't be a dick.
Yes.
Be nice. It's nice to be nice, isn't it?
Manners maketh man.
Absolutely. Christine, it's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to drop your links below in the YouTube. This will go out on Spotify and Apple and all the other ones. So please like it, please share it, please subscribe, please help us support this mission and push beyond the battlefield. But that's episode 17. Christine, thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.